Mm.
So in the meantime, I actually want to introduce some people on the team. My name is April. For those who don't know, I'm the community manager for SmartThings. We have Jim Anderson on camera right now. He's actually a documentation guy. We will be posting a link on documentation, especially when you're writing your first smart app. His documentations are your go-to place. I want to introduce Chris. He is your smart app person that when you have questions on the community website, he is your go-to person. And he will, walk you through, he'll review your code as much as he can. Major, who is also on this call right now, he is the person who also will be doing the reviews for SmartApps approvals. So that's a few of us. Ben is the main team member here. He essentially oversees all of us. So he is, the face of the community, to say the least. Most importantly, I want to introduce
So
you.
you're the face of the community, April. A much better face.
Apparently so, because you have no face right now. You're not even using a camera. And most importantly, I want to introduce you to Matt Nohr. He's done a lot of these workshops before. He is one of the most talented people that I know. He is so brilliant. He's super friendly also. I love working with this guy. He is super awesome. And I think he recently got a new promotion, and I don't have your title with you now, Matt, but if you'd like to introduce yourself a little bit, that would be great.
Yeah, follow
Yeah,
that introduction, Matt.
I know. I don't really think I should just walk away after that. Can't get much better. It's all downhill from here. Yeah, I'm Matt. I don't know. My title is senior software engineer or something for the platform. I'm a cloud developer. Been with the company for a couple of years, which is the whole time of the company since Kickstarter or so.
Yeah, so he's super amazing. He'll walk you through all of them today. So, all right, now it's 5:05 on my end, so let's get started. Again, I want to welcome all of you guys to the SmartThings workshop, specifically about writing smart apps. As you know, we are an open platform for the Internet of Things. At SmartThings, we want to personalize your home, because every single person's house is completely unique and, as like yourself. Everyone lives their home very, very differently, or live their own way. So this is an open platform. So not only can you use, different use cases and tools that we provide, but also you can write your own and personalize and add new value to your home. You're able to do that with smart apps, which is what we're going to be focusing here today. You can also do it with device types, but smart apps itself is a very big topic itself. So we'll walk you through the IDE. We'll, talk to you about, how to use our tools in addition to, walking you through how to write your own smart app, which is very easy to do. Even I could do it. So, which is interesting because the internet actually has gone through a few big waves. The first one was Google bringing, the knowledge graph and made information right at your fingertips, right? So you can now search everything that you want on there. The second major wave was social media, where it brought the social graph online, where you're able to get instant updates about your friends and what they were doing, and what they ate just for lunch today. So finally, we believe that the Internet of Things is the third wave that is going to happen with the internet, bringing your bringing your devices and the physical world online. And we here at SmartThings believe that we can actually do that for you. Currently, we support hundreds of smart apps, and those are just the ones that we provide out of the box. But we also support customer and developers to provide their own smart apps and devices that make it, thousands of them instead, right? One of our hubs can connect in local devices and sensors, Wi-Fi connected devices, Zigbee devices, cloud connected devices, LAN devices, and not one company will make every single solution. And we know that here at SmartThings. We can't make infinite amounts of ideas, but allowing us to have an open platform allows you to actually customize it in the way that you do. So with that said, Matt is going to walk you through everything from our tools, our developer tools that we provide, to just writing your first app. So I'm going to turn this over to Matt. Thank you, guys.
All right, thanks, April. Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of paging through the list of attendees, and I see some familiar names, but we're going to start kind of at the beginning of kind of what smart apps are. So it might be some review for some of you, but let me share my screen here. But we'll kind of walk through, or I plan to walk through kind of the basics of where you find smart apps in the SmartThings app, as well as then kind of going off of that and then kind of modifying some smart apps that already exist and kind of writing your own. Well, if you have questions along the way, feel free to use that Google moderator. A bunch of SmartThings people around, I think, that can answer some of those, or feel free to just chime in and ask me. And if anything comes up, April, if anything comes up that's interesting that you want me to answer, feel free to kind of interrupt me at any time. So let me try to share here. There we go. Okay, so can you see this presentation? I hope. So smart apps are one of the ways that we let you at SmartThings to kind of personalize your home. And I like to think of them as kind of installing apps into your house. The same way that you would install an app on your phone, this is an app that kind of changes or adds value to your smart home. And they're kind of just rules for your house. So smart apps have a couple functions. They respond to events, and that's how they're kind of triggered. So it can be anything from like your physical devices, like a door opening, motion detected, someone arrives, if there's water or smoke detector is detected. But it can also be things that are kind of not based on devices in your home, like schedules or sunrise or sunset. All those things can kind of kick off a smart app, and then you can set up, the smart app has some rules around it to take action. So you can, again, interact with your physical devices, like turning on lights or locking doors, or you can do things like set notifications or other kind of alerts like that. And like April said, we provide hundreds of these smart apps out of the box. We also, developers have written a number of them that we've kind of reviewed and published, so you can find those in the SmartThings app too. But the kind of the big benefit of this open platform and these smart apps is that you can write your own, and we tried to make it pretty easy to do that. So we'll walk through actually writing one here in a minute, but basically what a smart app is, it's a standalone piece of code, Groovy, in this case it's Groovy code, that you write just the simple app, and then you can publish it and install it. You can share it with your friends or your anyone on the community site, or you can even try to publish it through SmartThings, and we'll review it for you. And it's not just the big thing about smart apps is we rely on these pretty heavily for lots of the features in our own apps. They're not just kind of a side thing that we added after the fact. From the start, smart apps we're kind of the way that kind of all of our app was built, and I'll show you some of that when we kind of get into it. So I'm not going to talk much about device types, but we'll probably have another workshop on that entire topic. It's a little more complicated than smart apps, but they're kind of in the same vein. If instead of adding new kind of rules to the platform like a smart app, you can add new actual physical devices. And basically a device type, I'll just talk for just 1 minute about them. If you imagine a bunch of different kinds of light bulbs that we support on our platform, they could be, like April said, they could be like Zigbee things or Z-Wave. They could be Philips Hue bulbs, GE Link. All these different types, they send these raw messages up to our platform, and a device type is responsible to kind of convert those weird raw messages, which are usually some kind of weird code and hex, convert those and into kind of a standard format. So like for the light bulb, it would convert it into something saying like switch.on, or the switch is on. And then as a smart app developer, we rely on that, so you don't need to care about what type of devices you're using, whether they're what protocols they are or anything like that. You just have to care that they're a switch. And then going the other way, when you say on, you don't have to know the specific commands for a Hue bulb to turn it on. You just have to tell the system to turn it on, and the device type handles that. So that's all I'm going to talk about for device types. It's a whole big other topic, but some of the stuff we're going to talk about a little bit later when we're getting into writing smart apps are kind of based on these kind of converting the raw messages into standardized events and kind of sending commands back. Okay, so I'm going to start and do some demos now. I just have I don't know, there's not many more slides, so most of this will be demos, so wish me luck here. So here's our app. Get some of the noise away here. So this is a SmartThings app. If you haven't seen it, hopefully all of you have if you're writing smart or want to be writing smart apps for it. And right off the bat, I want to just point out some of the places that are smart apps. This is our kind of main dashboard, and each one of these rows is a kind of smart app built in. Underneath there's more smart apps, like this. In this case, this lamp is a smart app. So we kind of use smart apps all over to build up our the functionality of our mobile apps. And up here in the corner, there's this is our what we call Hello Home. There's notifications. Oops, excuse me. Come on. You can execute phrases, like you can do things like say good morning or good night. You can have, and these are all smart apps executing in here. So like I said, we use this kind of all over the place. We use smart apps for kind of all of our kind of event processing. So to add a new smart app, if you haven't, hopefully you've done that. But to add a new smart app, you go into this plus sign, and in this kind of marketplace of there's a whole bunch of, these are kind of all the things you can add onto our platform to kind of customize it however you see fit for your home. So this first one is things, and so these are actual physical devices that you want to connect. But kind of everything else here these are all different smart apps that you can install. So just as an example, I might want to do a motion, or let me see, what do I want to do? Oh, I want to maybe, let's see, I know what I want to do. I want to turn on a light when there's motion. So I'll go into, I'm sorry, I'm clicking kind of fast. Let me start over. Go to the actions, go to this lighting row. Say turn it on when there's motion. Just have to set up. So I'm going to say this lamp. That's actually right over my shoulder here. Oh wait, sorry. I'm so used to doing this, I'm going kind of fast. So this is a page where you would actually set up kind of the preferences for this smart app. So this is a specific smart app, and when I get into actually writing smart apps, you'll see where you can define kind of these labels and what kinds of devices you can choose. I have a number of devices set up, but the only ones that I can choose here are motion sensors in this case, which I have one right here. For this case, this is all I'm going to kind of set up. This smart app, you can do specific things like only execute smart apps at a certain time, certain days of the week. So all that things are very powerful because, like April was saying, it helps you personalize your home. And let me hit done here. So now when there's motion, oh, come on. Of course, it's a demo, so it can't be that easy. Uh-oh. Hold on. I don't know if that worked. So now, the light would turn on. Another one that I want to try, and what we're going to kind of start with here, is an app that a number of our customers use to tell them when the mail has arrived. Actually, before I do that, are there any questions? I feel like I'm just talking to myself here. I don't know if there's people are even listening. Anyone?
You're certainly listening.
Okay.
I'm actually following through. It's so exciting to this time for us to have the app here to show first too. So this is super helpful, even for someone like me.
Good. Okay. Well, yeah. Like, if you have any questions, feel free to interrupt me. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep rambling. So I'm going to install an app. It's called Mailed Arrived. And how it works is I don't know if you can see me. We have these multi-sensors. Inside of them, there's a number of different sensors inside these. One of them is an acceleration sensor. So when it shakes, it can send an event. It also does open, close, and temperature and some other things. But the one for this app is when you shake it, the kind of we call it acceleration, and it just says, oh, it's active, it's moving basically. And a lot of our customers will put one of these in their mailbox, and then when the postal worker opens the mailbox, and just that action will shake it enough that we'll get an event, and then they'll get notified. So I'm just going to search here up in the top of this view at the plus sign. I'm just going to search for mail, and hopefully it just shows up. Oh, there's a number of them. So I'm going to choose this mail arrived. In this case, you can see kind of who wrote it. In this case, it was SmartThings, but it could be, in a number of cases, there's apps written by, actually a number of people on this call have written some of them. So we're going to install it. And for this one, we just choose, a multi-sensor, or technically it's an acceleration sensor. So it could be anything. In my case, I have this one pair that I already called mailbox. And I'm just going to have it send me a notification. You could actually have it send you text messages too. You can do just specific modes. For this case, that isn't really going to apply, but maybe you only want to get notified when you're at home or something. So I'm just going to say done. Hopefully this one works. Yep, okay. So now down in this row, or in this dashboard, there's a new row called convenience. That's the category that this mail arrived app was in. Here it is. So now if I shake this, I should get a notification, hopefully. Oh yeah, you can see my push notification showed up on my phone here. It also, in this Hello Home view, right here, it's 7:20 here in Minnesota, so it says mail has arrived. So that's just a real simple case, but we're going to kind of tweak that a little bit going forward. If you ever want to remove one of these, you just you find the app that you want to remove, you click the little gear here to go into the details of it. This is also where you can update any of the settings if you want to kind of change anything. Oops, I clicked the wrong button. So I'm just going to uninstall this because we're going to play with it in the IDE, and so I just want to make sure we don't get confused about what's running. So like I said, there's a whole lot of, I don't even know the latest count of how many apps are kind of in here. there's quite a few. Even in this more, there's, you can click in and find, there's a whole long list in all these categories. So I encourage you to browse around, kind of experiment with what works for your home. And they're easy to kind of set up and test with and play with, and easy to remove if you're done with them, or if they don't do exactly what you want. We're doing all right? Does that make sense, everyone? I go into writing smart apps now.
Yes.
All right.
That's the fun part.
Yes. All right. Got to make sure we're all on the same page here. So that's using smart apps. Our smart apps are all written in Groovy. I'm assuming there's some people on here that haven't written Groovy. So let me just explain a little what it is. I'm going to give you some examples if you're familiar with other languages that aren't Groovy. Some kind of weird gotchas that are kind of Groovy specific that we use all over smart apps that will kind of be good kind of tips and tricks to know. So Groovy, it's a dynamic language. It's based on Java. So if you're familiar with Java, pretty much if you write actual Java code, it should all work in Groovy. It's very similar to kind of other dynamic languages. I don't know, Ruby is another one that it's similar to. There's lots of tutorials and things. The best way, if you're trying to learn Groovy for writing smart apps, honestly, the best way is to look at other example smart apps and try to see what they're doing. But a couple things, there's some good, our SmartThings documentation, which I'll show you in a minute. So here's a shout out to Jim. He has some other good examples about kind of Groovy specific things. So the first thing is how Groovy, so there's a couple quick things about Groovy, and then I'll get into actual smart apps. Strings and how they're handled is a little different than some other programming languages. So they're called Groovy Strings, or the unfortunate name of G strings. But what you can do, and we do this all over smart apps, is if you use these double quotes, you can do things like a curly or a dollar sign with a curly brace, and then evaluate expressions right inside of the string. In lots of languages, you would have to kind of end the string and then do, concatenate it with something else. If you do single quotes, like down here where my name is, then the evaluation doesn't happen. Then it's just the same as a Java string. And so you can either do the dollar sign with the curly braces to evaluate, or if it's just a variable, you can just do the dollar sign with the variable name, and then that'll get evaluated right in line, which is very convenient and one of the big shortcuts that people who write in Groovy use all the time. The next thing that's kind of weird to people who aren't familiar with Groovy is that semicolons are optional and parentheses are optional, which kind of drives some purists crazy. So these first three lines here all do the same thing. They'll all evaluate to the same result. Basically, it's saying if the word smart is in this string of smart things. So you can put semicolons. In most Groovy code, we almost never do, just because I don't know if we're lazy or it's just clutter that we don't use. And oftentimes we'll also just drop parentheses like this for methods. And the big case you'll see in smart apps is things like, instead of doing at the bottom here log.debug and then the parentheses with whatever message you want to do, we'll just leave the parentheses off and just do that kind of debug. Kind of weird for people who aren't used to Groovy, but you get used to it pretty fast, and it makes it pretty powerful.
Pretty good for people who actually know multiple languages, and you're jumping into a different language, or yeah. If you're jumping into Groovy and you accidentally do this, it totally just works.
Right.
That's good for me.
Yes, good.
Because I do this all the time.
Yep. And then the last thing, I'm not really going to talk about this, but this is kind of the selling point of Groovy that everyone loves. It's closures. So this probably looks really weird if you're not familiar with it. But you can pass in, a closure is kind of I don't even know how to explain it, but it's this thing with the curly braces here with the debug statement in it. That's a closure, then you can pass it around. It's kind of like a method that you can pass around. In this case, we're passing it into, it's used a lot in these collections. You can pass it into a method, and like this one is doing it right in line, but in this case, it will just print out all 3 colors one at a time. So that's a whole nother topic, but you'll probably see some things like this, especially when you're dealing with maps and lists. So I just wanted to point it out so you at least know where to start. All right. Any questions on Groovy? I've been using Groovy for a while, but I wouldn't call myself a real expert, but I'd be happy to answer any questions. There's probably some other people on this call that are more Groovy experts. Otherwise, we'll get into actually writing smart apps. What you came for.
I think Andrew has a question on chat. He says,
Hello?
sorry, no.
Oh, okay. Making sure I didn't lose everyone.
I'm sorry. The question was, with the parentheses, or not parentheses, those are, kind of parentheses between the it. If you do, like, for example, the $IT, is that the same then?
On this one, the kind of the curly braces that I call them.
Yeah.
With the $. So if you're going to do an expression that's, in this case, the $2, they're doing the same thing. They're evaluating something kind of right in the string. In this first line, it's kind of a more complex statement. It's creating a new object and calling toString on it. So if you're doing anything that's, an expression like this, that's usually multiple words together, or doing something kind of longer like that, then you have to put the curly braces around it just so the compiler knows kind of where to start and where to end on the kind of inline expression. But if it's something really simple that you can, like a variable name that you can just call toString on, or it is a string, then you can just leave off the curly braces. When I get into the editor, I can show some examples of that if people are interested, instead of editing it in this PowerPoint, I can actually do it in the editor. It might make a little more sense. But I hope, does that answer your question, Andrew?
Yep, thanks, says Andrew.
Yeah, it sounds like April. Okay.
They all sound like me.
All right. So I just bumped my motion sensor so my light turned on that I installed earlier. Okay, so let's be done with slides and actually get into, there we go. Okay. All right, so here's our, to get to it, this is the URL that ends up at, but you can go to ide.smartthings.com. It's a little easier to remember. So if you go here, you can get in here. If you have if you've logged in with your phone, the same login stuff works here. Let me just log in again. So this is what we call our kind of web IDE. I'm trying to think where to start. I'm not going to go into too much detail. The main parts we're looking for are up on this menu. There's a My SmartApps page. So that's one. The other one we're really going to be talking about is documentation. So let me click on that one. So this is just docs.smartthings.com. And if you're going to, after this, if you are going to go write your first smart app, there's this getting started one that's writing it walks you through step by step, kind of the same type of stuff I'm going to be talking about. but it walks you through step by step of kind of writing your first Smart App. So I'll kind of demo that documentation here. So if you don't see, I think it's possible, everyone should see My Smart Apps up here. If you don't see that, instead you'll see a link down here that says Become a Developer. So then you click that and then you'll see it. I just want to point that out in case you, for some reason, don't see that. So we click on My Smart Apps. So I don't have any yet, so I'm going to add my first one. And so there's a couple ways you can create a Smart App. If you want to create it from scratch, that's this first tab that you see. It's from Form. So you fill out this form that has a bunch of information about the Smart App that you want. And we'll do this here in a little while, but for now, we'll come back to this, we'll just say. The other way is one of the other ways is if you found a Smart App that you want to try, maybe someone shared it on the community site, then you could just copy that whole Smart App and just paste it right in here and hit create, and then you'll have your own working copy of it that you can kind of test with and play with. But we're going to start here is from this third tab, which is from template. Most of the apps that we provide out of the box for SmartThings are all in this big long list here. So you can look at any one of these apps that we have and see how we wrote it. Some of them have been around for a while, so there might be other ways to do it too. But you can change it by category, so you can kind of filter it out. But this is great for what we're going to do is that mail arrived app. Here it is, so I'm just going to click on it. The code is all here, and this is great when an app mostly does what you want or partially does what you want, and you just want to add to it or tweak it a little bit. You can just go get the actual code that we run for SmartThings and kind of get your own working copy of it, and then kind of tweak it how you want. So I selected mail arrived on the little left menu, and then just hit create, and here it is. So here is a Smart App. It's this is the IDE or the editor. Let me just talk a little bit about a couple how this screen is laid out. So the big section on the left over here is the actual code. In this case, so it's all of about 66 lines of code. And that even has some stuff that it's probably a little bit longer than it really needs to be. Then so as you're making changes, talk about these buttons up here. You can save it at any point. If you're on a Mac, Command S, or on Windows, Control S should automatically save it. We'll publish it here in a minute, and then once it's published, you can use the mobile app to install it at your house. The IDE settings, if you want to change your theme or something, if you like a dark theme maybe, you can change all that here. I'll just go back to the default. I think that might be a little easier for this demonstration. And can everyone see my whole screen? Does it fill up? Is it okay to read, or should I make it bigger or anything? Just thought of that. If you want me to, let me know. The other things on this page that you're really gonna, if you're just getting started writing Smart Apps, is up in this corner. There's this Browse Smart App Templates. So let me quick change something here. I'm going to change the author to Matt Nohr. And I'll show you why in a sec. So in this Browse Smart App Templates, all those same ones of our apps are kind of listed here. So you can look at example code as you're editing. And this is the same list of kind of the SmartThings provided ones. But there's also, even more important, is this browse link at the very top of this list. In here, this new window pops up, and these are apps that other developers have chosen to share because they think it's useful, they are doing something fun that they want people to see. As you can see in here, let me quick count, I don't know, about 400 apps that developers have shared. So it's great, you can kind of browse through maybe kind of see if there's one that's something like you want. Here's one called Honey, I'm Home. There's some information. You can kind of see what other people are doing and kind of get ideas. Try to find, if you have kind of an idea but not quite sure where to start, you can kind of browse through this, see if anyone else has done something like that. So it's really a great resource for learning because you can click on any one of these and kind of see what other people have done and try to get an idea. The other thing is, so if I can search, or I can just scroll to the mail arrived app again. So if I look at that, here's the code. Remember I changed the Smart app. So you can actually, if you're modifying one of our apps, you can actually see the difference between kind of the supplied version or the example and what you have. See, so you can see here the one line is changed, is that I changed the author. So, and you can apply, like if you want to kind of revert your changes, you can kind of go back and revert it.
Is everyone seeing his screen update? I'm seeing it delayed a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There we go.
A little slow. Oops, no, I just did it wrong. Okay. So I won't be clicking around quite as much anymore, so I'll try to slow down a little bit too. Okay, so anyone have any questions about this screen? I'll talk about this kind of right menu here as we start testing it at, but this is where our simulator is, and I'm gonna see if I can hide this. This is where our simulator is, and you can, we'll show you how you can kind of test your app kind of in the browser here without having to install it in your home to test it.
What's really cool about that too is you can test some of your code automatically even if you don't have that product itself, and you can even write smart apps for things that you don't even have at this time, and it will let you know. So that's really cool, especially when there's like new integrations coming out, and you already want it set up by the time it's out.
Yeah, it's also useful if you don't want to be bugging your spouse and turning lights on and off all the time. My wife appreciates that. Okay, so I'm going to talk, let me actually get into the guts here of how a smart app is laid out. And then we're going to modify this. This is that mail app. Or mailbox app. We're going to modify it so it actually turns on a light when the mailbox opens, in addition to sending a notification. So there's kind of like 4 main parts of a smart app. The first part is this definition section. And this is the metadata about an app. So it has the name, kind of your namespace, which I'm going to change to mine. Maybe I'll change the name to be like, say, mail arrived and lights, something like that. And this is the information that will show up in that kind of marketplace and that plus symbol at the bottom of the mobile apps. This is so what information will be there so you can find the apps. Then let's see. It also has a description. You can add custom icons, which category it should fall into. So I'll just leave that all for now. But as you're writing smart apps, this is kind of the information, the metadata about the smart app in this section. So next is the preferences section. So if you remember in that smart app, or in the mail arrived app, I had to choose my mailbox app or my mailbox device, my motion or my multi-sensor. And this is the section this is the part of the smart app that kind of defines what those inputs are that the user has to choose, or you choose when you're writing it for yourself. So let me bring it up again so we can just see. Oops, I clicked the wrong one. Oops. Sorry. Trying not to click too fast and then I'm getting in the wrong place. So again, here's that metadata. If you can see my phone here. So again, it has the title. And when the changes I see, we'll see when I actually publish it. This is the kind of the standard SmartThings one. But here is, so there's sections, and that's just this text here. When mail arrives, that's this right here in the app. Let me slide this over so you can see. Here's the title for which type of device is this. Down here, the title, push notification. So this is, I think you get that. What you see in the mobile app here is what you define in this preferences section. Got it here. So I'll come back when we get to modifying this, I'll come back and explain kind of the inputs a little more. But this one has the input for the device, which we're going to call an acceleration. This is just a variable name. We'll just call it that for now. And then a couple more variables for, like, do we want to send push notification or do we want to do a text with a phone number? So that's the preferences section, which defines what shows up when the user is trying to install it, what you need to configure. The cool thing with SmartApps is that you can write this app once, and then if for some reason you have 3 or 4 mailboxes, in this case, or maybe 2 you have, the same SmartApp will be used in multiple places, but you just set different devices, or different times a day you might want to send a text to someone different. And that's all the same SmartApp, but you can just configure it differently. Yeah. All right. So then moving on, the next part is we have a couple methods that kind of define the life cycle of the SmartApp. So when you actually install it, or when you click updated, these methods get called, and this is where you kind of configure or initialize the SmartApp. So in this case, what you typically see in here is you subscribe to events. And so how that works is we want to listen for any time that multi-sensor is active or when it's shaking. And so how you do that is you just say subscribe, you give it the name of the device, and this is what you set up in the preferences section. You say what you're listening for, and I'll come back to this part. And then you say what you want it to do when you get one of those events. And this is just a method name. You could call it whatever you want. And then that's defined down here in this method. So basically, after you install it and you say subscribe, the SmartThings platform will listen for anything for this specific device when it's active. And when it has that, it'll start up this SmartApp and execute this method. So the way that this kind of magic happens right here is when I was talking about device types, I talked about how it took all these raw messages and kind of standardized them. For like switches or light bulbs, it's all of everything would be like a switch, and you'd say switch.on or switch.off. For the case of this mailbox app, I'm worried about, and what we call these are capabilities. And so the capability that I'm looking for here is anything that has an acceleration sensor in it. So this multi-sensor, it has lots of things in it, but one of the capabilities it has is an acceleration sensor. It also has capabilities like contact sensor, temperature sensor, it has battery. So it has all these different capabilities that provide information. In this specific case, I care about anything that has acceleration. And it could be this multi-sensor, it could be any other device that says it handles acceleration. And then we have kind of a loose contract then that if a device says it supports acceleration, for example, it will supply events that are conform to a certain name, either active, in this case it's either active or inactive.
Hey, Matt.
So
I have
yeah,
a question from the community.
yes.
I was just wondering, Patrick Stewart was actually wondering if there are any interaction events a smart app can subscribe to, like App Touch or other things.
Yes. App Touch is the one that you can subscribe to. Um, I think that's the only one. Yes. So that works by trying to think. I'm trying to quick think up an example of one that does App Touch. Um, after I get through this, we can quick write one if you're interested. That an App Touch means that in the mobile app, again, oops, I lost my connection here. Let me see if I can get it back. Anyway, where um, in the list where we saw that little icon that said mail arrived, and I had the gear where I could configure it more. Um, in there, if you subscribe to App Touch, you're able to actually tap on it from right within the mobile app, and that would trigger this smart app to run. You can also, so these are subscribing to, so, okay, to finish that thought, we can, when I'm done with this kind of modification of this, we can write an app that does App Touch. I haven't done that in a while, so we'll see if I remember, but I think I know how to do it. Maybe. We'll see. And then, so getting back to this one then, so this one subscribes to actual physical events from a device. You can also do things in these kind of life cycle methods, these installed and updated, where you can kick it off based on schedules. You can subscribe to like sunrise and sunset. Won't get into that too much right today, just because I think we're going to run out of time. But those are the kind of things you can subscribe to, kind of that list that I talked about a little earlier. And all of those would happen in these methods. Then, so the last part here is the kind of this method that handles the event. This is what gets called when I actually get one of these acceleration messages. So this is a little more complicated than we care about right now. This whole part right here, we're going to kind of skip over because this just tries to prevent it. So if it shakes and then stops and then shakes and then stops and then shakes, like open the mailbox and then close it. You don't want a stream of notifications every, right away. So this section just tries to kind of prevent that. What we really care about here is kind of this section. And specifically, we were just doing push notifications. So if push notification, which is up here in the preferences, that's just the variable name that we used for this do you want to get a push notification, which is a kind of a Boolean. If you want that, then all you have to do is say send push and you'll get like mail has arrived. Maybe we'll change this so we know that it's this one running and call it mail has finally arrived. I think I was playing with something like that. So now let me talk a little bit about actually testing this out. So over here in the right-hand side, okay, so I saved this. So over here, we're going to actually install it and so into my location. So basically, this mimics what you would see in the mobile app. It's so it has all the inputs that you had selected up here in the preferences section. You can choose either. I'll talk about using virtual versus physical. So for now, I'm just going to say I'm going to use this fake acceleration sensor. It's not a real device or anything. And all it's going to do is it lets me, I'm going to just click install while I'm talking here. It's going to let me test this out so I can send kind of fake events through and see how my smart app will handle them. So let me try to get my mobile phone so we can kind of see. Just give me one sec here so we can try to see. There we go. What? Oops. Oh. very personal, you seeing my home screens. So, okay, I just want to bring this up so you can actually see messages coming through. So this over here is a kind of what we call them virtual devices. It's not a real, it doesn't exist anywhere except in this browser. And what you can do, you can send messages through either active or inactive. So if I send active, this is basically mimicking me actually shaking the device. So if I do that, I'll go back here, and if you look up at the top of my phone or in, let's see, we'll go in here so you don't have to, hopefully it'll catch up. You get the notification that, mail has finally arrived. That's what we changed at this time. You also see the log messages that came in down in the bottom here. So those are messages in here, acceleration sensor has moved and sending push, that's this message, and then I actually got the notification. So that's good for like as you're testing. You can also use your real device and test that way. So if I just change this input to be my real physical device that I have sitting here on my desk, just click updated. So here's my kind of mailbox. It's showing the contact state right now, so I can open and close it. So now if I actually shake that, hopefully you'll see, it has a kind of, it happened, or the event happened again from me actually shaking my physical device. All right, that's a lot of information. Is that making sense? Anyone have questions about any of that stuff before we start kind of changing this some more? I haven't really done much yet. All right, so what I'm going to, yeah. Do I hear someone wanting to say something? Okay, so what I want to do now is turn on a light when mail comes in addition to sending notifications. So how we're going to do that is the first thing we need to do is let the user choose kind of which lights that they want to turn on. So that would be back up here in this top in the preferences section. So I'm going to add, this is broken down by kind of sections. So I'm going to add a new section, and this is, sections are just used to kind of visually break it up in the app. I'm going to add a new section and just call it turn on these lights. And this could be whatever text you want. And then, so since we need to ask for a new type of thing, we need to know which lights to turn on. I'll keep pointing at this because I'm going to use that in a minute. So you say input, and you can give it any name you want. Usually make it something easy to remember like lights. Then we're going to do a, we don't care what kind of light it is. Anything that implements a switch is what we're going to do. So that I know is a capability.switch. Now, I happen to know what a lot of these are, but if you don't know what all the list of capabilities are, we have a list over here in the documentation. If you go to reference material at the bottom of this menu here, one of the things in this, the first thing is a capabilities list. So here's a list where you can kind of look up like, I want to do something that it does on off. So maybe you could just search for on. That might be, how about off? That might be a little better. Then you can kind of find, oh, okay, it must be some kind of switch. So you can kind of narrow it down. So this exact string right here is kind of what I'm going to put in my SmartApp, capability.switch.
What's really cool also, I'm sorry to interject.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is that on the community site, if you don't see a capability that that we have right now, and you want to define a capability, we actually have a subcategory in the forums for you to make that suggestion too. And we have been looking at that, and we're going to be implementing some of those sometime soon.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, this list is hasn't changed much lately or in the last year or so, but like April said, we really want to make it kind of more useful, and a lot of community members have been making suggestions about how capabilities should work and new capabilities. So I don't want to get into all that.
A lot of great suggestions on there too.
Yeah. We don't have time to get into all that right now, but these capabilities are kind of that device type standardization, and that's what we call capabilities is. And so let me show you let me get back to switch here. So this is the one I'm going to use. It does have states, but I don't really want to listen for any of those. I'm just going to use these commands, we call them, to turn the light on or, yeah, just on actually. Okay, so back to the Smart App. Here I have a capability that switch. This right here is all that you really need to do. But I'm going to do a couple more things. I'm going to give it a title just so it's a little more user-friendly, like I'm going to call it which lights, maybe. Again, this is just text that will show up in either in the simulator over here on the right or in the mobile app. And the other thing I want to do here is allow you to choose multiple lights. So maybe you want to turn on 2 different lights when your mail arrives for some reason, or maybe just one. But if you want to allow them to choose one or more, then you can say multiple, if I can spell multiple, true. And the other thing is I might not always want to do lights, so I'm going to say required false.
Hey, give me 1 second. It seems like there's a delay in terms of the screens being updated.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. All right. Well, okay.
All right, here we go.
All right. Okay, so let me talk again about this line. This is the line that I was just talking about and just added. That starts with input lights. So basically, the word lights means that's just a name of, you can call it, it's a variable name. You can call it whatever you want. You can call it Matt's lights. You can call it boo, whatever you want. The next part that starts capability.switch, that is for what type of device or what type of input you want. It doesn't have to be a device. In this case, we're saying capability.switch, and that means any device that implements that capability. If you look down a couple lines where it says push notification, we also allow inputs like a Boolean, that's just kind of an on-off, yes, no. We also ask for phone numbers. You could just ask for a text, like a straight text if you want to do that, or numbers. So we support a lot of that different kind of thing, depending on kind of what you want your smart app to do. The next part is a title. That's just what gets displayed. Then multiple true, because I want the user to be able to choose one or more lights, and required false. So the combination of this multiple true and required false means that the user can choose 0, they could choose 1, or they could choose every switch in their whole house if they wanted. Okay, now we actually have to use that, and it's going to be really easy because we already are listening for the right event. All we have to do is turn on a light at the same time that we're sending the message. So I'm going to scroll back down to the bottom here, and down in this block where we're checking if there's a phone number, and if there is, send a text, and checking for push notification. If there is, we're going to send a push notification. And all we have to do to turn on our lights is just say lights.on. And that's really as easy as it is. Just by adding that one line, now any of the lights in your that you've configured will turn on. And like I said, with the kind of capabilities, is it doesn't matter what type of light it is, or even what kind of switch. It could be, your Philips Hue bulb that you want to turn on. It could be, an in-wall, Z-Wave switch. It could be Zigbee. Could be a, Zigbee outlet that you plugged in, a Zigbee connected bulb. Anything that's supported on our platform that's a switch, you could turn on now with this app by just saying .on. So that's why device types are kind of complicated for that reason, because it has to take these kind of complicated messages and kind of standardize them. But because they do that, and because all of that kind of complex logic is handled down at that layer, makes smart app writing so much easier, because all you have to do is just say on. You don't care what type of thing it is. as long as it can handle an on command, then it will, you can just call this kind of simple method. And that's really, I mean, this line is kind of the power of the SmartThings platform right here, all in one line. Okay, so now we're going to test it out. So I saved it. We're going to update it. Brought up my list of preferences again. So now you can choose kind of any devices. I'm going to start off with just a couple kind of virtual devices here, just so we can see what happens. We'll have it send a push notification too, just for fun. So I just chose one kind of virtual light. This isn't a real thing. I can kind of click on it and it'll look like it's turning on and off, kind of like it would in the mobile app, but it's not actually changing anything. So now if I send this active event through again, this kind of fake device will automatically turn on. I don't know if you heard my little chime, my push message came through too. So that's good. That's great for testing. But where it starts getting kind of really fun is you can use a combination of kind of virtual devices and real devices. So I'm just going to choose that same kind of fake acceleration sensor. Choose one virtual switch and one my actual lamp that's right kind of over my shoulder here. I'm just going to click update. How are we doing? Can people kind of see my simulator here?
I'm seeing it, but I also have a question, Matt.
Yeah, go ahead.
When I when I define a name, if I use capitalizations, does it do I get an error?
Will you get an error? Like if I called this lights like that?
Yeah, and like, does Groovy prefer lowercase, or is there having uppercase? Does that work?
It works, yeah. The only thing is you have to be consistent. So if you use a capital L here, then you have to use a capital L wherever you want to reference this for the name. You could do my lights. You could use, we call this camel case with like capital letters in the middle. You could start with capital. You could, if you like screaming, you could call it lights. So you can call it, you can use any characters you want. You could probably, use numbers in here. You can do, I don't know, I'm guessing you can probably do, I haven't actually tried this, but you could probably do a bunch of symbols if you really want. As long as when you use this, it has to match, and the case matters. So like below I have a lowercase. Oops, I don't want to scream anymore. So if I had changed this to uppercase, then I'd have to change it down below to match. So it still said, so in both places it had an uppercase L. So as long as you're consistent, you can call it whatever you want.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
I'm just going to change it back so I don't forget. So does anyone else have any questions before I'll just keep rambling on. So in the simulator here now, I have these couple virtual devices. Again, they're kind of fake.
Yeah, Matt, there was a question. He just wasn't quick enough. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Is there a section in the docs that explains the rules for indenting and closures when editing apps? Jim might be able to take that.
I don't think so. There's no real rules about indenting. There's a lot of personal preference that a lot of developers have, but there's like if you wanted to take this whole thing and so I like indented it more. I can like put weird spacing in if you really want, and Groovy will all handle that. It'll make it really hard to read, but that's my personal preference or my opinion. But you can kind of do indenting however you want. For closure or like I'm trying to think like down here in these need to be indented too if I was going to be picky. For closure specifically, there's some things you can do on the first line of a closure. This is just like a normal if statement, but if you wanted to do something about lights.each, you could do with a closure. And you could do all in one. You could just do, well, I don't want to get into closure theory right here, but that's a little beyond, I think, this. But we can talk about that if you want to ping me. We can talk about closures and what you can and can't do on the first line of a closure. But for the most part, spacing doesn't matter, indentation doesn't matter. Groovy, it does matter. In Java and other languages, technically you can kind of put everything on one line as long as it's separated by a semicolon. But in Groovy, since we often ignore or just leave off semicolons, you can't put multiple expression or multiple statements on one line. So that's kind of the only kind of difference in Groovy versus something like Java. Though I don't know many Java people who will put a bunch of statements all in one line separated by semicolons, even though I think that's technically possible. Does that kind of answer the question?
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so back to this test here, with the simulator is kind of cool that in addition to these virtual devices, this is this actual lamp, so I should be able to just turn it off here by clicking in the browser, which is really, I still think it's pretty cool. Like, I wrote some code in this browser, and now I can actually physically turn on and off my lights from a web browser, which, kind of pretty neat. And then I can, this event did come through. I was clicking kind of fast. If I send this active event, then hopefully my actual light will turn on in addition to the kind of virtual light. And then to take that one step further, I could use from within this web browser in the simulator, I could go back to using my actual, acceleration, my mailbox device, physical device. And let me catch up here. I'll turn off this light. So then when I shake it, my actual light will turn on, all from this code that's running kind of from within a web browser. Does anyone have any questions about that? Talk a little bit about publishing. So this button up here has this kind of publish button. So once your app is working like you'd expect, you tested it out. I'm going to just click uninstall over here. So it's not running in the simulator anymore. I want to install it through the mobile app, so it's running in my house, and then I don't have to have this web browser open. All you have to do is say kind of publish it, and the option is for me. You get this message that says it was published. And then if you go into your mobile app, down in you click the big plus button at the bottom, and there'll be a new section over here called My Apps. And so here's the app that I just published. So remember, I changed the name
we
to
can't
Mail
see
Arrive.
your screen
sorry.
yet. Your phone screen. So there it is.
Okay. And you can see that I have My Apps selected.
Yep.
So this is in that marketplace. Now there's a new section called My Apps. Any of the apps that you've published for yourself will show up here, and you can go through and install it in the same way that you installed, any other smart app, like the ones that SmartThings provides or you found elsewhere in that marketplace. So now I'm going to kind of turn on this lamp. All right. So these are just those preferences that I had set up, with that exact same text. I'm going to say done. So this is basically what I did just a minute ago in the simulator. now down here is there's a new My Apps. And so now, I could put this, device in my mailbox, and when the mail arrived, I would get the same push notification, but my light would turn on. So let me shake this and the light should turn on. Ta-da! And I got another push notification. Yeah, so does anyone have any questions about that? Now it's already, I don't know, April, how long you wanted me to blab on for.
We have this till 6:30. It was when we were sort of planning on it. So
Okay.
if
Another
there are
20
other things
minutes.
that you could do, we've got another 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Todd did just say, for the new people, if you name your app the same as an existing smart app, will it overwrite the original? Todd, is that a question?
Yeah, it is. Sorry. Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure that people understand that if they name their app the same, Matt, will it overwrite the original smart app? So like you use the SmartThings provided mail arrived. If I left the name or I named my app mail arrived, will it affect the original one in any way, or what will happen?
No, the original one, what you're doing is just kind of making a copy for yourself. You could actually do that. There it is. We could actually change this back right now, save it and publish it again. This is your own kind of working copy, so you're not going to overwrite the kind of SmartThings version at all.
And that's where I was trying to get you to go, is that when you create an app, and the ones that you publish to yourself, what you kind of get a sandbox that your apps are in. You might want to explain a little bit more on that.
Right. Sure. So thanks. So these are all, you're not actually editing the one that, thousands of other SmartThings users are using. You're creating one just for yourself and you're editing it. The best practice is, to be really safe, is that's why we have this namespace in here. I kind of changed that without saying much about it, but in the Smart App, the best practice is to, provide your own namespace. Typically we recommend, if you have GitHub, to use kind of your GitHub username, but it can really be kind of whatever you want. Technically, it shouldn't really matter if we left this as SmartThings, and we left the author as SmartThings. It would all still work. I just like kind of changing it for my own purposes, and just so when I'm kind of looking at the Smart App, I have a better idea of, if I'm using the SmartThings version of it or my own version. So that's kind of why I usually just change the name slightly, even just put my name by it. But even if you left it like this, you would see in the mobile app, if you left the name the same as the SmartThings app, you'll be able to, under My Apps, find this version of it, and under the convenience, under More, or whatever that was, I think it was More Convenience, where I found mail arrived, there'll also be a mail arrived there, which would be the kind of standard SmartThings version. And that one will always be there.
All right, thanks for that. That's a good note to change, to call out. There's a few other questions I want to make sure that you see in the time we've got going.
Sure.
This one I don't know the answer to, so maybe you will. But it says, how can you set up send notification to contacts? This is a contact book question, I believe.
What's that, Ben?
I don't know if that was a contact book question or what.
Yeah, so we're kind of in the middle of getting something we're calling contact book rolled out. And that's going to let you be able to send notifications to specific people in your account, or actually specific
Even
people.
in your account, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't even have to be in your account. You'll be able to kind of import your contacts from your phone, the ones that you want to send information to. So maybe if you want to have like your neighbor in there, and then if you're gone and you get an alert, you might want to like send a notification, you got a text message to your neighbor. So we're kind of wrapping that up and kind of testing that out. So that's going to be coming soon. For now, if you wanted, you could set this up and just put in phone numbers for, put in different phone numbers and text those numbers in certain cases. Push notifications right now, they'll go to everyone on your account. So like if you've shared your home account with your spouse or your roommate, everyone who has SmartThings for that account, they'll get the same notifications if you use push notifications. Text messages are obviously per phone number. And you could set up maybe multiple phone numbers in a smart app if you want to text it to multiple people.
Matt, so
Yeah.
in cases of, Andrew actually had a question about this. In time allows, can you show us what happens when the app writes, like when you have a bug, how do you debug? And then also like if you accidentally write lights with a capital L on one of them and then it's inconsistent everywhere else.
Basically, questions about how to debug a bug or a typo.
Yes. It's okay. It's people who have written some can chime in their best practice too. It's not always the easiest. And part of the problem is Groovy is such a dynamic language that there's not a lot of when you save it, it's hard to kind of compile and do like syntax checking. So there's not a lot of like compile time errors. If you do something like you don't have a parenthesis or a brace somewhere, and then you try to save it, you'll get a big warning at the top. If you'll get kind of used to reading these. It's so at line 70, it's expecting one of these curly braces. So you can go, well, line 70 is at the end, so it just kind of means that you missed one somewhere. So you have to kind of debug. So you'll get some kind of, if the syntax is totally wrong, you'll get some information like that. Otherwise, as you're testing it out, the best way that I've found, and other people who have written some, feel free to chime in here, is to add kind of debug statements. If something isn't working, you can use, log messages like this. This one already has a bunch in there. And you can kind of step through and kind of see what's happening. Yeah, does someone else have?
I think that just in general, as you're developing, the best practice is to use log statements frequently, as well as just to save often and run in the simulator. Just like normal programming, right? You don't want to go off and create hundreds of lines of code and then try to run it, because you might see errors that are way back in your development process. So frequent saving and simulator runs are going to serve you well. Make sure you're capturing errors as close to where they happen.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thanks, Jim. All right. Any other questions? What else you got for me? If nothing else, I'm going to try to write a app touch smart app. Patrick, were you just asking like?
Well, yeah,
or do you want me to actually show an example of app touch?
I use app touch a lot just because
Okay.
it's one of those things where if I don't have a device yet and I'm just trying to hook up to a web service or something, I want something that I can use in the simulator to trigger an event. So it's as simple as using subscribe app, function name.
Yeah.
And then in the simulator, you get that nice little button that says app touch, and then you can use that to trigger any function. It's kind of almost like a pseudo unit test.
Yeah, that's okay. So I'll try one real quick. So we'll do some speed smart app development on the fly. So if you're going to create a new smart app from scratch, you go back to the My Smart Apps tab. I just clicked new. There's a button here. I'll step back. Up in the corner, there's a big green button that says New Smart App. I'm just going to kind of walk through this form. There's only a couple things that are really required. So test app touch. And I'll show you what it looks like in the app too. So namespace, again, it's not actually required, but I'll just fill mine in. Just give it a simple description. That's really all you have to enter. There's some other information down here. You can automatically include this Apache 2 kind of open source license. That's kind of best practice. That's why we have it defaulted by checked by default. You can set icons. I'm just going to leave those all default and then hit create. So really quick, let's say input. We're going to just do lights again. So lights. So we'll do app touch. We'll turn on a light. All right. So let me slow down here. So a couple differences of this smart app from the mail arrived one. It automatically put, like I said, this Apache license in here, which is really good for if you're going to be sharing this app with other developers. It's kind of the basic, like, be free to use it, but don't come complaining to me if it doesn't work. It also, I don't know if you remember in the mail arrived app, the installed and the updated method both ended up doing the same thing. And we've kind of noticed a lot of developers and kind of the community has found this best practice of instead of repeating that code in both places is just call another method that developers typically call initialize. So that's just another method that, and all the common stuff can do in there. So what Patrick was saying here was all you have to do is subscribe, and then it's just app. Is it just app like that? And then
I believe it's just app and then comma, whatever the function name you want to call is.
Yeah. So I think it's just that. I haven't done one of these in a while. Okay. So then I'll just say create that method that I want.
I don't think it needs quotes, unfortunately.
All right. I think it probably takes an event, maybe. I don't remember. We'll try it out and see. And then we'll say lights. Oh, guys, my light's on right now. All right, we'll see if this works. Unscripted smart app development. All right, so we'll turn on my lamp or turn off my lamp here. So like I was saying now, right here in the simulator, there's this trigger now method or button that would happen. So we click that, my light turned off, so it works. And then the other thing you can do is if I'm going to switch over to the mobile app here again. I think it takes a minute when I switch things. Can you see my app? Anyone?
10 seconds behind your audio.
Oh my gosh. Ugh. All right, well, I'm going to get over to, while I'm waiting, let me know when you see it.
I see it.
Okay. So here, now under my apps, there's this thing that we just created. We'll just install it. We'll select my little lamp over here and say done. Can you see this screen now? It's just like switching takes 10 seconds or something, right?
Yeah, you're about 10 seconds behind it. We're finally seeing the uninstall SmartApp install here.
Okay. So, well, I'm going to install this, and then let me get to the screen that it has it. Let me quick turn this light back on while I'm ahead of you. Oops, where is it? Uh-oh.
There it is. Oh, wait. It just showed up in my apps.
Sure. Thanks. Okay. So, all right, can you guys see my apps now?
Yep.
So as you can, if you look in here, you can see that it has this new installed, or this app that I installed here has this kind of play button on it. And so you can kind of click right on that and it'll turn or execute that smart app. In this case, it just turns off the light. So that's, like Patrick was saying, it's a great way to test things. Maybe you have a case where you want to execute a series of events or something and through the mobile app, and this is one way that you can kind of do that.
Yeah, where I use it is I've got a particular case where I've got to sync with the server a bunch of date updates. So rather than having to go through the install process all again,
yep.
I can just click that and it'll resync everything for me rather than having to reset up the entire smart app. Sonos, sorry, I had a little cold there.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, I hope you feel better.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that you have a cold.
What?
Yeah. Light bulbs. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so smart apps, these are some pretty basic smart apps that we're writing. But like Patrick's saying, you can do a lot of complicated things like call out to web services, interact with, all sorts of different types of, third-party apps. So there's a lot you can do with smart apps. This is just kind of really scratching the surface. Are there other questions? If you do have any questions, feel free to find me on the community site. That's a good place. My user is just Matthew Nohr, or Twitter is at Matthew Nohr, or just matt@smartthings.com. So feel free to reach out. The plug for the community site, I'll jump over to that, this is a really great place to ask questions if you're kind of writing new smart apps. I love our developer community. They're really involved and they, are always willing to kind of help out people as you're writing smart apps.